So glad you're with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. And it's a little bit kind of a sandwich of a three martini lunch today. Both the first martini and the second martini involve Democrats trying to cover up incompetence or in some cases corruption. And in the middle, we've got a major food fight inside the Republican Party over what President Trump wants done on this extension of Obamacare subsidies, and specifically what he wants done on abortion policy. So we will get to all of that in just a moment.
Greg, I hate to interrupt. Are you hungry? We have a sandwich of topics. We have a food fight. And of course, our podcast is a Three Martini Lunch. So not only that, you're trying to get our listeners and viewers hungry and thirsty. You'd think we were advertising Omaha Steaks today, but we're not. We're advertising three other wonderful sponsors.
Yes, exactly right. Good point. So let's start with your business and our brand new sponsor, CoastPay, because if you haven't modernized how you pay for gas and other materials that your teams might need, you're likely losing tens of thousands of dollars a year to potentially fraud, but certainly endless paperwork and trying to keep up with receipts and everything else. Well, CoastPay cuts fraud, saves money, automates your accounting, and it works anywhere that Visa is accepted with real customer support that actually answers the phone and keeps your teams moving.
Your accounting team will thank you for using CoastPay. Automatic receipt capture and cleaner data means your month-end process of processing all those payments goes from a tedious multi-hour project to just a quick review. And as Greg mentioned, it's not like the other fuel cards where it's got to be at a particular gas station or something. Coast works everywhere Visa is accepted, which is just about everywhere. So every gas station, every brand, every time, your drivers will not be making detours to find the one station that takes your particular fuel card.
Exactly. So right now, CoastPay is offering Three Martini Lunch listeners free gas for the day when you get started at coastpay.com/3ml. Go to coastpay.com/3ml to get free gas for a whole day. Terms apply. That's coastpay.com/3ml. The Coast Visa commercial credit card is issued by Celtic Bank. All card accounts are subject to credit approval. All right, Jim. Well, let's start with the, I guess, the top piece of bread in this sandwich. And we start in Minnesota with the giant Medicaid fraud, welfare fraud, autism money fraud, daycare fraud. You know, it's wide ranging. And a lot of this has been going on for a long time. You've talked about it earlier this week that you wrote about this even before Tim Walz was named as Kamala Harris's running mate. And when we first reported this story in the wake of the City Journal expose last month, we also noted that there had been reaction from some state employees saying, hey, we tried to blow the whistle on this, and the reaction we got was, let's just say not good. We were basically told to shut up. Well, Minnesota State Representative Maren Rarick is testifying on this, and she explains what happened when whistleblowers did, in fact, try to warn people about the fraud that they were seeing.
In our face-to-face meetings with a group of whistleblowers, they revealed that retaliation now includes threats of being fired with cause, which means you do not get unemployment insurance in the state of Minnesota, being blacklisted from all state agencies, and I would note most likely our largest counties as well, which are Democrat-run. And then there was a veiled threat of the use of military intelligence against them. They later informed me that it was discovered that in some targeted employees or suspected whistleblowers' personnel files were pictures of their homes and their cars. They also described that supervisors asked them questions about their families that to them felt like a threat. One example was, we need to know where your kids go to school and where their bus stops are.
So, Jim, you and I have talked many times before when it comes to whistleblowers, if they're exposing alleged malfeasance against Republicans, they're heroes, they're patriots, they're people showing tremendous courage. If they're exposing corruption or fraud or something else by Democrats, well, they're the most evil people on earth. How dare you suggest that anything untoward is happening here? But this is exactly what we heard from the whistleblowers on paper a month ago, and then to hear it like that even, the kids of these whistleblowers are potentially targets for intimidation is absolutely beyond the pale. And this whole notion that, we just had no idea what was going on. No, they knew. They just didn't want it exposed.
Greg, I'm trying to grasp or imagine the scenario where a boss would innocently inquire as to the location of the bus stops of an employee's children. But how does that come up in casual conversation? Hey, Ed, how's it going? Just wondering, do your kids stop at the Main Street and Elm Street one or a different? I just want to know. That's a very suspicious inquiry. And for what it's worth, State Representative Rarick has been trying to sound the alarm on this for a while. Back at the end of November, she posted on X, I've been speaking to these whistleblowers over a dozen times in person. They are who they say they are. Their collective story is consistent throughout. She points out that they were supposed to have Eric Grundahl, then the behavioral health director, testify in front of the Fraud Prevention Committee, fired the night before and not available to testify. Jody Hampstead was the DHS commissioner, told the state Senate fraud was just a rumor. Left suddenly when the Feeding Our Future scandal broke wide open. Shireen Gandhi was the director of compliance and was moved up as the temporary DHS commissioner. She told the Fraud Prevention Committee that her previous role had nothing to do with fraud detection. Well, it's very clear that no one was all that interested in doing fraud detection. For everyone who's kind of been thinking, how could look, we've seen fraud in government programs before. What makes Minnesota different is the scale of it, not just the sheer amount of money that has been lost, but the sheer amount of people involved, the sheer amount of people who were in positions of authority who should have detected this. To have this many payments going to one address and no evidence of all the kids that they were doing for the daycares and stuff like all of this, the sheer sudden explosion of kids who had autism and needed state payments to cover that sort of thing. All of these sorts of things should have sounded the alarms, should have raised red flags. They didn't. How could so many people be so oblivious? Well, if people didn't want to see it, that explains a great deal. It could be they didn't want to see it because they were embarrassed that this much fraud was going on their watch. It could be because they were effectively in on it, or they could be because they believe that the people who were benefiting from all the fraud were their political allies, and their job as state officials was to make sure that money was wasted on the right sources, political allies, and not wasted on the wrong sources. We're not supposed to have waste anywhere. But anyway, it's just an observation that this would explain a bunch, and it's good that this is coming out. That is the silver lining on an otherwise very dark martini.
Yeah, it's the good martini because it's coming to light, not because of what happened here. But
this is not a salute to the innovation of how, wow, getting the state officials in on the scheme really is a groundbreaking idea. Good for you, Somali fraudsters.
Yeah,
well played.
Exactly right. The idea that all these state officials were innocently duped or unaware of this massive, at least $9 billion, and some say it could go quite a bit higher than that level of fraud, doesn't seem to be holding water. And it might be one of the reasons why Tim Walz has decided to not even try for a third term at this point. But we will find out. But look, there's a lot of fraud going on in the state program in Minnesota, but it doesn't mean that people don't really need doctors. And so when it comes to your health, ZocDoc is where you want to go. Annual physical, dentist, eye doctor, specialist, whatever you need. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone that you can trust.
You know that feeling when you walk out of a doctor's office and think, wow, they made me feel so much better? Well, that's how I hope I'm going to be feeling later today when I see my optometrist that I was able to find through ZocDoc. It's a very convenient location, so convenient that I could not figure out any good excuse to put off this optometrist appointment. That's the one downside of ZocDoc. If you are looking for excuses to not see the doctor, ZocDoc is going to take them all away because it's very easy to find doctors in your network. It's very easy to find doctors that are conveniently located. You just click on it. You see all the appointment listings. Usually you can find them, if not that day, then like in a day or two, most of the time 24 to 72 hours away. Again, it takes away all your excuses. So if you're terribly afraid of doctors, this is not the product for you. But if you do need to see a doctor, you're probably going to want to check out ZocDoc.
And you definitely need them at some point. Yeah, and the reviews are so helpful. Gives you a real good idea about this is the type of personality, the type of expertise, the type of track record. Do they actually diagnose things well? You'll find all of that out, and you'll be able to book the appointment right there. So stop putting off these doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/3ML to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/3ML, ZocDoc.com/3ML. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now. And this took place yesterday as President Trump was addressing congressional Republicans, I believe at the Kennedy Center. I guess it's the Trump-Kennedy Center now. But nonetheless, he's talking about the agenda for the year to come leading up to the midterm elections. And one of the things Trump wants to get done is the extension of the Obamacare subsidies that expired at the end of last year, which is exactly how the Democrats scheduled them to be sunset. The Senate Democrats got their vote on their version, didn't pass. The Republicans had their version, didn't pass. But Trump believes that this issue needs to be resolved before the midterms or the Democrats are going to club Republicans over the head with it, which he might be right about that. But how he wants to go about it is not okay. Here is what Trump had to say about what Republicans need to be able to accept in order to get this done.
Let the money go in the healthcare account or however you do it. Let the money go directly to the people. Now, you have to be a little flexible on Hyde. You know that. You got to be a little flexible. You got to work something. You got to use ingenuity. You got to work. We're all big fans of everything, but you got to be flexible. You have to have flexibility.
You got to be flexible on Hyde. For those who don't know, the Hyde Amendment blocked taxpayer funding of abortion for many, many years. The Democrats have been able to refinagle that into policy as of late. And Jim, is kind of the benchmark for, the very bottom line for Republican pro-life policies is that you can't force taxpayers to pay for the killing of unborn children, which they find morally reprehensible. And the language on this is weird because I don't know how you're supposed to finesse it. You've got Jeanne Shaheen, who's one of the Democrats working on the Senate compromise, finding President Trump's comments on flexibility to be helpful. And so what they want to massage or finesse or be flexible on, I don't know. Here's Andy Harris, a Maryland Republican over in the House, saying there's really only two ways you can look at this.
Can I ask you on Hyde? The Trump president said yesterday be flexible on Hyde.
Well, there's no flexibility. You're either using public funds to pay for abortion or you're not. We're not sure there's a compromise available on that.
Okay, thank you.
Can't say it much more succinctly than that. So, Jim, a lot of pro-lifers very frustrated by this. Susan B. Anthony list and a bunch of other groups. So there's so many reasons why I find this frustrating. But obviously, the idea that one of the most basic pro-life principles could be on the chopping block here or on the trading block is completely unacceptable to a lot of people on the right.
Yeah, look, it's a light switch. It's not a dimmer switch. It's on or off. There isn't a dim the lights somewhat. I suppose if you really wanted to stretch it, you could say, yes, we will provide federal funding for abortions, but it will only be paid in rolls of pennies. And so it's going to be such a massive headache that nobody's going to want that payment in that form anyway. No, there isn't. I'm glad that there's at least some people on Capitol Hill standing up against this and saying, no, Mr. President, if you're going to be pro-life, look, it's bad enough that abortion is legal in as many states as it is. But the one thing pro-lifers could say is, well, at least my tax dollars aren't paying for these sorts of things. I am not complicit in the process of abortion by paying my federal taxes. And the president wants to change that, or at least the president is open and amenable to changing that. And I think to a lot of pro-lifers, it's not. Are pro-lifers happy that we have 3 Supreme Court justices who ended Roe versus Wade? Yes. But that did not mean that the effort to either completely eliminate or at minimum continue to hopefully, for a long stretch, we were declining the number of abortions in this country. That number has been going in the wrong direction the last couple of years. And it's a deep frustration to the pro-life community that, we were making good progress. We got another goal we wanted, the end of Roe v. Wade. And now, actually, unfortunately, things are going in the wrong direction. Look, you're either subsidizing abortion or you aren't. There isn't any wiggle room on this. And then, so yes, it's not a particularly, I thought the whole government shutdown fight was over subsidies for purchases of insurance under the Obamacare. When did the Hyde Amendment come in on this? Why? And then finally, Greg, I understand the president is 79 years old. Why is he doing the Joe Biden whisper? Joe Biden speeches used to have shouts. And then there'd be a dramatic whisper. And then there'd be a shout again. And now the president is saying, you got to be very flexible. It's very weird. There was an odd tone for the speech, odd tone for that moment. Look, I know Donald Trump for most of his adult life, was anything but a consistent pro-life activist. When he chose to run for the presidential nomination of the Republican Party back in 2015, it was very clear to him, you have to be pro-life to be the Republican presidential nominee. And he suddenly was a, no pun intended, born-again pro-life activist, and made very clear to the Christian conservative community that he was going to be the right way on this. And that's great. And then Roe v. Wade got underturned, and President Trump apparently believed that he had earned some flexibility. He may well have earned the trust of a lot of pro-lifers, but I think this is a bridge too far, and he's asking House Republicans to do something that they can't do in good conscience. And I'd prefer if the president kind of recognized that, no, this is not the sort of issue that a whole bunch of pro-life Republicans, or I would say pro-life Democrats, but they don't really exist anymore. But the pro-lifers just can't be, there are certain things you can give some room on. Taxpayer funding of abortion is not one of them.
No, that's been a hard line for a very long time. A couple of quick follow-ups on this, Jim. I thought coming to a compromise on legislation involved, hey, you get something and I get something. The extension of the subsidies is the something that you're giving to the left, if in fact you want to go along with this. So why are Republicans adding anything else, particularly this, in the process? The sweetness is you're getting part of what you want here with this extension. I don't know why he's expecting them to make such a dramatic concession in the other direction. It's crazy.
The argument is pro-life conservative House Republicans have to make this concession to get Democrats to accept the other concessions.
It's insane. It's insane. And there was a report over at the Dispatch by your former colleague, John McCormick, who says that he specifically quoted Josh Hawley saying, we could go along with this and then the president could deal with the Hyde Amendment through an executive order. And I'm thinking, I know, Josh Hawley, you weren't here when Obamacare passed, but that's exactly how that got passed through the House. Yeah. My former congressman back up in the UP of Michigan, Bart Stupak, a pro-life Democrat, went along with that canard. He voted for the bill. Obama signed the executive order, which had no teeth against enacted legislation whatsoever. So it's a thin veneer of surrender there. Don't fall for it, Republicans.
Well, Greg, because we're never going to have a Democratic president ever again, there's no way that executive order could be undone by some other executive order.
Right.
That's never happened.
Yeah, incredible. So, hopefully Republicans hold the line there. We got the defunding of Planned Parenthood through the big, beautiful bill. A bunch of judges decided to find that unconstitutional somehow. Last I heard, the appellate courts had reversed that, and so there shouldn't be more Planned Parenthood funding. So some pro-life stuff is getting done and advancing. Other stuff, compromise is happening where they absolutely should never be made. All right. Well, I'll tell you where you don't have to compromise, and that's the quality of your phone system at your business. And in this new year, this is the time when we look at some of the different parts of our business and how can we do things better. And when it comes to your communications, there's definitely a better way. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest and easiest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O. It's the smarter way to run your business communications.
Quo works wherever you are, right from an app on your phone or computer. And it lets you keep your existing number. So you can add new numbers or teammates in minutes. You can sync your CRM and rely on seamless routing and call flows as your business grows. Your entire team can handle calls and texts from one shared number. So there's no more missed messages or disconnected conversations. Everyone sees the full thread, making your replies faster, and your customers will feel genuinely cared about.
Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away from you. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/3ML. That's QUO.com/3ML. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, I promised you the other piece of bread in the sandwich, and here we go. Let's head out to California, where it's been just about a year. January 7th was right at the heat, no pun intended, of the Palisades fire and other fires that ravaged parts of L.A., certainly Los Angeles County and so forth, Malibu, and on it goes, Altadena. And so there's this report out from the Los Angeles Fire Department, the after-action report. And basically, the guy who wrote it says he can't endorse it because it's been revised so much by politicians and fire department officials. And so LA Times actually doing really good reporting on this. It initially says the author of the Los Angeles Fire Department's after-action report on the Palisades fire declined to endorse it because of substantial deletions that altered his findings, calling the edited version, quote, highly unprofessional and inconsistent with our established standards. Having reviewed the revised version submitted by your office, I must respectfully decline to endorse it in its current form. This is from Battalion Chief Kenneth Cook, who was emailing then interim fire chief Ronnie Villanueva. Cook went on to say the document has undergone substantial modifications and contains significant deletions of information that in some instances alter the conclusions originally presented. Well, we mentioned it was the then fire chief there, Villanueva. We've got a new fire chief now, and at least so far, things are going a little bit better. But in one of the changes in this report, the Times reports that LA Fire Department officials removed language saying that the decision not to fully staff up and pre-deploy all available crews and engines ahead of the extreme wind forecast, quote, did not align with the department's policy and procedures during red flag days. Instead, the final report said that the number of engine companies rolled out ahead of the fire, quote, went above and beyond the standard LAFD pre-deployment matrix. Slight difference there, Jim. I don't know if you picked up on that. But when it comes to the new chief, Jamie Moore, he says it's now clear that multiple drafts were edited to soften language and reduce explicit criticism of the department leadership in that final report. This editing occurred prior to my appointment as fire chief, and I can assure you that nothing of this sort will ever happen again while I am fire chief. I guess time will tell on that front, Jim. I'm sure it doesn't surprise us that the politicians want to cover their backside on this, as well as the fire department officials who took a lot of criticism last year. But facts are facts, and again, bad that they tried to cover it up. Good that it got exposed.
Greg, I was going to say, what are the odds of the Palisades burning down twice in a row? So, yeah, they probably won't happen on their watch again. There's that. Look, I wrote about this a lot at the time, periodically checking in. Very disappointed with the extraordinarily glacial pace of the issuance of permits for reconstructions. This is a slightly different issue. There are certain issues that are beyond the control of Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County fire officials. Santa Ana winds coming out of the north, as they sang in that song "I Love L.A." They are a powerful accelerant to wildfires out in that area. I remember seeing, I think it was the Wall Street Journal had some very good reporting. They have deep canyons, and the canyons has that scrub growing on it. It's very hard to reduce the scrub that's there, and that stuff basically is dry kindling. It helps them spread very quickly. And basically, they said some of these canyons are so steep, you would need to have a guy rappelling on the side to get to it and then start doing it. Some of these are factors that are going to be outside of their control. How much do you deploy ahead of time? That's something you can control. Do you intervene in a certain area, or do you prioritize endangered species? That, by the way, what do you think is going to happen to the endangered species in the wildfire? They're going to burn. This is an endangered species rescue mission. If that's what you have to call it, then do that. Should the mayor be in this hemisphere? These seems like very basic questions about how the city should prepare for a potential wildfire, particularly when the National Weather Service says that the combination of arid conditions and high winds are going to make an extraordinarily high risk for severe wildfires. I would have thought, you all saw the video of the utterly devastated Palisades and the chunks of the city where there's nothing standing left. It looks like, look, I've been to Ukraine, I've been to Syria. They're in better shape than some of those parts of the Palisades. There are at least some buildings still standing in places like that, right? I would have thought the devastation on that scale would have shaken even the most jaded, cynical Los Angelino and recognized we need better governance. We need better services. The status quo is not acceptable. The status quo is what got large chunks of our city going up in flames. I'm not sure we're getting it. I would have thought that the devastation was so self-evidently a failure that these standard CYA procedures were not going to work. Apparently, I'm wrong. Apparently, they really think that you can edit them and say, tisk, tisk, so much of this was out of our control. There's nothing we could have done. 50 lashes with a wet noodle and, move. I hope that everyone forgets about it. Well, there are a whole bunch of Los Angelinos who can't forget about it because they don't have their homes to move back into. There are still a whole bunch of empty lots all across Los Angeles because of these wildfires. So, again, kudos to the Los Angeles Times. It is utterly jaw-dropping. I can't believe that anyone still has any faith in Karen Bass. I think all this reflects very badly on the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who has set his eyes on another office. But, even on the most basic level of was the fire department prepared? This isn't even getting to the issue of the reservoir that had been closed for a year in the Palisades. It's just utterly infuriating. Again, good journalism. Now it's up to the people to actually have enough public anger to spur some changes over there.
One other note, and you mentioned an endangered species. This is from another LA Times report. An hour after midnight, January 1st, this is last year, as a small brush fire blazed across Topanga State Park, a California State Parks employee texted the Los Angeles Fire Department's heavy equipment supervisor to find out if they were sending in bulldozers. The response? Heck no, that area is full of endangered plants. Welcome to leftist policies and the actual impact they have.
I was going to say, Greg, I'm not a scientist, as everyone who did not want to believe in the lab leak theory kept reminding me. What happens to an endangered plant when fire comes to it? I think it becomes even more endangered to the point of being a dead plant and not salvageable plant. It becomes, so congratulations, decision makers. Those endangered plants are now ashes, which I guess eventually they become, carbon for the atmosphere, but.
My gosh, they might have been run over by a bulldozer, but instead the whole neighborhood burned down. Yeah, that's a really smart decision. Anyway, we hope you're back on your feet soon, folks out there in Pacific Palisades. Jim, have a good day. See you tomorrow.
Greg, this sandwich raised my blood pressure.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at 3 Martini Lunch. Have a great Wednesday. Join us Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.